Oftentimes, this idea of desire has been represented as an evil thing, often associated with lust. And I would have to agree that in many cases it is associated with lust. So I decided, well, it's kind of a long story how I got here, but we're going to talk about lust and we're going to talk about love today and desire and how to fight lust. You know, I knew somebody that was struggling with porn um, a while back, and they went to their congregation or to their teachers or whatever you want to call them, and they just were not given any real helpful information. Take every thought captive. Well, how do you do that? Like, I don't know. I don't know. And I had no answers for this person. And so I was disappointed. I know that they were very disappointed. But here we are, you know, and now I feel like the Lord has allowed me to see something that maybe I'll be able to share with this person and be able to help them. So I'm very excited about that. But I decided, actually, this started with a memory that I had, and I wasn't really planning on um, presenting this, but that's what I felt like the Lord was leading me to. And I guess we're gonna start with what lust is versus love. So I did a search of the word lust in our scripture. I went to blueletterbible.org and I just searched for lust. And I came up with like all these different references in the Old Testament and in the New Testament to the word lust. So I started to look at the different words. Well, the first one I came to actually was associated with imagination. That's what I thought at first was that was the only word. But there's actually several words that are translated in certain instances as lust. So that was kind of confusing for me, and I had to go through and kind of look at it. Sometimes it wasn't a bad thing that it was associated with, and it might be the translation that you're looking at. So sometimes it says desire or any number of different things. And I was very confused by this. So I knew kind of what I thought the Lord was showing me, but I wanted to have a better understanding of this word lust. And so the two scriptures that I'm going to really look at with you, there's lots, but I wanted to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about when I speak of lust. So the first one is in Proverbs chapter 6, verse 24 through 25. To guard you against an evil woman from the flattering tongue of a strange woman, do not desire her prettiness in your heart, neither let her captivate you with her eyelids. Now, the word desire here is can also be translated as lust. And this is when I started to see, that desire is really the key. Ow, is really the key to understanding lust. And of course, you have to desire something to lust after it. So what's the difference? I mean, because you can desire after things of the Lord, and that's not evil, right? So what makes lust lust? So anyway, I'm going to go to Matthew in the Gospels. Matthew chapter 5. Is it chapter 5? Hold on. I will find it. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay, chapter 5, verse 27. You heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not commit adultery. And then into verse 28. But I say to you that everyone looking at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Okay. So this is a desire. Well, the last time I made a video, it was on kintsugi and communication. And as I was studying this and presenting this, I started to see some things that I hadn't really seen before. And if you watch that video, then you would kind of understand this, but I'm going to try to recap it a little bit. Basically, when we look at someone or communicate with them, and we're trying to communicate with their spirit, we're going to see things differently than if we're trying to communicate with their flesh. But after I had made that recording, or maybe while I was making it, I don't remember what happened, I had this understanding, this revelation that come to me. When someone falls in love or desires your flesh, and I'm not talking about the flesh of your physical body. Sometimes I am, but the identity that you have from the world, they desire that. That's lust. It's desiring the flesh instead of the spirit. And I think that's the difference between lust and love. When you see something and you love it that is in the world, and we are in the world, but we're not supposed to be of the world. And this is something that it's not, I would say, bad to be attracted to your wife or to your husband and to find them beautiful in the flesh. But if that's your focus, then you're going to end up having problems. And this is actually what I believe the devil does. We desire things. And if our heart is desiring what God wants or what God finds beautiful, then it's okay. You know, when we love somebody and we see them for who they are, and we love who God has made. You know, that's not lust, right? You're not desiring them, you're loving them, you're seeing them. But when you start desiring the things of the flesh, you want to take it, you want it. And that is lust. But the devil takes desire, and he's not going to be able to change the fact that you desire things. Everybody desires something. Anybody who says that they don't desire something is lying. I know I always have an agenda. Okay? And I did a video on what's your agenda. My agenda is to love you, right? But it's also to serve God. That's a desire that I have. And it's not an unrighteous one because it's of the spirit, not of the flesh. I care about your spirit. I care about who you are. I love you, not your flesh, not the identity that the world has given you or that you've claimed for yourself. It doesn't matter. Okay, so there's a difference. But the devil can't change that you desire. So what he's going to try to do is get you to take that desire that you have, that love that you have, and turn it to the flesh. He can't get rid of it, so he's going to turn it into an abomination. He's going to make it dirty and sick and twisted. And so look at King David. All right, here he is, King David, a man after God's own heart. He loves God. He sees this beautiful woman, and he desires her. And he sleeps with her and gets her pregnant. To cover it up, he kills her husband, takes her as his wife. Desire. He repents, right? He repents and gets back in a righteous relationship with the Lord. But that's one example. David had this capacity for love. And the devil wants to take that and make it into something gross and sick. And that's what happens in our marriages, in my opinion. Not always, obviously, but I've seen it. A husband lusts after his wife, or a wife lusts after her husband instead of loving them. Okay? Oh, I love my wife. Do you? Really? Let me explain. You fall in love. You think you're in love, right? She's a good cook. She's a righteous believer. She prays. She loves the Lord. She does all of these things, right? She looks the part. And the second that she stumbles, you don't love her anymore because you didn't fall in love with her. You're not loving her. You're loving her, the idea of her, what she represents to you. And that's lusting after your wife. And so when you don't see your partner, whether it's a husband or a wife, or your children or your friends, in this idea, because I love my friends very deeply. And I'll tell people I love them all the time, and it's a little weird sometimes, but I love them. And I want to see them for who they are. And because I love their spirit, I love their soul, I love who they are in Christ. And I'm not looking at the flesh because that's going to get me to lust. Then I am able to withstand those stumbling blocks when they stumble. and not just get rid of them, because that's what happens. So you think you're in this loving relationship, but are you? You fall in love with your husband, right? You're in love because he looks the part. He's a believer. He has a job. He takes care of his business. Blah blah blah. What happens when he gets sick? Hmm? What happens when he loses his job? What happens when he stumbles? And you've fallen in love with the flesh, in lust, with his flesh, and never really fell in love with his heart, with his spirit, what's on the inside. And that's what the devil will do to you. And he'll whisper in your ear, well, they're this and they're that, when they want to break you up. And the devil doesn't want to see a righteous union, trust. He will try to destroy that. Especially if you want to walk like Yeshua walked. He's going to attack that. Okay, so this is what I understand lust to be. Lust is desiring the things of the world. Desire in itself, I don't believe, is unrighteous. I think it's an action. What do you desire? Do you desire to serve the Lord? Is that unrighteous? No, I don't think so. But when you decide how you're going to do it, so lust goes into the flesh. And lust takes, it wants, it expects something. It wants something from that flesh. Whereas loving in the spirit, and I saw this meme and it really spoke to me. I know memes and Facebook and all this, but it was like something to the effect of love gives and lust takes. And that very much feels like that. Now, I don't believe that that's always the case, because you can love someone and receive from them. And so I don't completely agree with the meme, but it does give you that mindset. It's different kind of action. Love sacrifices. Love is patient. Love is kind. We read this in Corinthians. I think it's Corinthians anyway, whatever. So what prompted this was a memory I had of my youth 20 some years ago. 20 some years ago. And I was a teenager. I was in high school. And so in high school, I had to take gym class. And I like gym. I like athletics. I always was very active when I was younger, before I had issues with my feet that kind of slowed me down. But I had a problem. And that problem was that I had a genuine affection for a woman, well, a girl, another teenager in my class. And I'm not going to harp on that right now. That's not the point. That was just something that happened. And I cared very much for her. But here I am in the locker room. And her locker's just very close to mine. Not right next to it, but, we can see each other. I didn't want to look at her, And so I would just not look at her when she was changing. But then I didn't want to change because, well, even though she didn't know how I was feeling, it was a little uncomfortable for me. But for me in that moment, my emotion and my affection was very real. I saw her. I cared about her. And I didn't want to cheapen that by looking at her flesh. I didn't want to violate her. I didn't want to treat her in that fashion. So I kept my eyes away. And I didn't change. I didn't participate. I sacrificed what I desired because I cared for her. That's the difference between love and lust. Lust would not have cared, would have looked, would have taken full advantage of the situation because it wants. But I didn't lust after her. I loved her. Now, I'm not saying I was in love with her, okay? I'm saying I loved her. The attraction was there, but I focused my mind on what was really important. And it kept me, one, from sinning. Because what did Yeshua say? If you, oh, wrong verse. If you, but I say to you that everyone looking at a woman to lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. But I didn't. I didn't. And not because I just was going to control my emotions and control my impulses and my desire. It was because I put my desire where it belonged, in her heart and in her spirit, in her mind. I saw her as this beautiful creature that God created, and I wasn't going to defile her with my lust. That's a choice. You can make that choice, and it is a hard choice to trust. Been there. Okay? I did the best I could. I was just a teenager. I didn't know what I was doing. But wrong is wrong. In my heart, I knew that was wrong. She did not consent. And when we lust after someone, we're not giving them consent. We're thinking these thoughts about them. And if you don't think that that has an effect, a spiritual effect, you're wrong. It does have a spiritual effect on you, even on them in some cases. So that was one example. And there have been other examples like that where I've genuinely cared about someone, and the devil, seeing that genuine affection, took my desire for them and tried to move it into the flesh, because once it's in the flesh, he can control it, and he can make you think things. Well, not make you, but entice you, if he can get your focus off of the spirit and onto the flesh. That's what lust is. And we have to take that back. And it's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. But it's about rebuking the spirit of this world. Now I'm going to tell you something else. Lust isn't always about sex. It's not always about desiring a person. You can lust after all sorts of things in this world. It's the desires of this world, thinking you're entitled to them. Now I'm going to share this other story that happened last week, actually. And so last week, I felt very under spiritual attack, and I was. There were things that happened that I knew something was not right. And I didn't understand exactly what left me open to it, or I don't know. Didn't matter. Just trying to find solutions. And it was dangerous because I know that there was something that wanted to see me dead. And that's not uncommon. The devil wants to kill you, okay? Especially if you're serving God. But I think this may have had human help. People can curse you and they can wish bad things on you and all sorts of things. And we have to pray. We're not at war with the flesh and blood, but with the powers and principalities of this world. We need to recognize that, put on the full armor of God. And so this spirit, when I finally got down to it, because I was really struggling, I asked for prayers from people in my life that I trust. And, well, I don't think I trust anybody. I trust them as much as I know them. And so the more I know you, the more I trust you, because I know how you're going to react. I don't trust someone to act outside of their character. So I should be careful saying I trust anybody, because I really don't. I trust God. That's it. Because he wants what's best for me. So when I was praying, I was struggling with this spirit. Finally, it was a communication with this spirit. I don't recommend doing that. Unclean spirits, they like to mess with your head. And so communication with them is not usually a good thing. It doesn't serve any benefit, typically. Sometimes we ask them their name, though. And there's power in understanding what you're rebuking, because you don't even understand how they're attacking you. And so in the course of this communication, it was something to the effect of, that my God, the God of Israel, Adonai Elohim, Elohim El Shaddai, our God of Abraham, wasn't the real God that it was. I was like, ooh, really? We're going to go there. But I was like, okay, there's lots of things that want to pretend to be God. But the argument that this spirit had was that our God, the God of Abraham, he doesn't want you to have what you desire. And that this God does. And that our God is mean because it stops you from having what you want, what you desire. But I felt it. The spirit, people believe, they believe this. They actually, I know I've heard this before. But to actually experience this and to realize that there are people in this world that actually believe we are evil because we love God, that we're the evil ones. I was like, people actually believe this. And then it's trying to say it's really the God. What? So I turned to God. I'm like, God, this is horrible. It's trying to act like I don't have authority over it and all of this stuff. And it was a powerful spirit. Of course, God, right? He's still God, whether or not this thing wants to say and pretend and usurp and all of these things. It doesn't matter what it says. Because I know it's true. And so I turned back to the spirit. And I rebuke it. And it left. And I felt better. Everything got better. Everything that was going on was done. And the spirit, what was attacking me, I don't know why. I mean, obviously, I love God, and it doesn't. I'm going to stop, it from giving people what they want, what they desire. Okay? But there's people in the world that if you're walking with the Lord, then your existence is going to keep them from getting what they desire. And here's why. I honestly don't care what people do until they take the freedom or they abuse someone else. I don't care. You want to go do whatever, that's your choice. But when it affects an innocent life or it takes the freedom away from an innocent life, I care very much. A couple years back, well, you know what? There's too many stories. There's too many stories. This is the mentality. This is the mentality. If you're too weak to stop them, then you deserve it to happen. Okay. But God tells us to free the oppressed, to help the widow and the orphan. It's this love for the oppressed is everywhere in Scripture. He loves his people. He doesn't want to see anyone abused, oppressed, right? He doesn't. That's what's happening. And a lot of times our desire actually affects somebody. Okay? That just reminded me of a verse as I was thinking about the spirit that attacked me. I had thought about what we're really at war with and what's written in Galatians 5:17. And I'm going to read that, but I'm going to actually read a little bit more than just 5:17. Because if I don't, you're not going to have the right context. Context. Okay. And I say, this is in verse 16 of chapter 5. And I say, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not accomplish the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are opposed to each other so that you do not do what you desire to do. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under Torah. And the works of the flesh are well known, which are these: adultery, whoring, uncleanness, indecency, idolatry, drug, sorcery, hatred, quarrels, jealousies, fits of rage, selfish ambitions, dissensions, factions, envy, murder, drunkenness, wild parties, and the like, of which I forewarn you, even as I also said before, that those who practice such as these shall not inherit the reign of Elohim. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustworthiness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no Torah. Okay, I'm reading out of the scriptures, just so you know. There's probably different translations. I know there's different translations. But the point is that it reminded me of that. See, the flesh does fight. It wants the things of the world, and the Spirit wants the things of the Spirit. When you walk in the Spirit, when you're focused on the Spirit, when you're being led by the Spirit, you aren't even going to want these things. See, you can't fight lust in the way that this person that I don't know if I mentioned earlier, there was somebody I knew that was struggling with pornography. But what we ended up finding out, that they didn't get much help from the other men at where they were attending, but that it wasn't just about lust, about pornography. It was about being focused on this flesh and things of this world, the identity that we have in this world, and that so when he started to be more authentic and walking in the Spirit, these other things went away. See, a lot of times people, oh, control every thought. If you're still focused on the flesh, you're going to fail. That's like white knuckle sobriety, right? I'm just not going to use that drug or that alcohol. I'm not going to do it. Instead of actually getting to the root of the issue, they're going to relapse 99% of the time. Okay, I'm kind of speculating. I don't know the statistics, but that kind of just, I'm not going to do it without any real healing oftentimes leads to this relapse, right? It's the same is going to happen with any kind of vice, whether it's lust, whether it's adultery, whether it's whatever it is, overeating. It doesn't matter. Your focus is on the flesh, not on the Spirit. Fasting and prayer is so important. How do we fight lust? Walk in the Spirit. How do you walk in the Spirit? Look at the Spirit. Talk to the Spirit. Hear the Spirit. And I'm referring back to the video I made on Kintsugi and communication. Because when you are speaking to the Spirit, focused on the Spirit, but not just in you, but in everything around you is both in the flesh and both in the Spirit. Right? Even the plants, the animals, everything. When you're focused on the Spirit, then you're going to want the things of the Spirit. And then the fruits of the Spirit will be manifest. Not because it's got to look like that, because that's still the flesh. And this is the other thing. People desire, they lust after a ministry. Like, that's not a bad thing, right? But is it? If I have to help this many people, I have to talk to this many people, I have to save this many people, I have to do these things because that's what I want, that's what I desire, but not because you care about them, but because you care about this ministry. We can make idols of almost anything. We can make idols of our church. We can make idols of our spouses. We can make idols of our children. We can make idols of our jobs. When we put the focus on the flesh instead of on the purpose and the beauty of what God created, the way He intended it to be. And I just keep going back to that girl in that locker room because I wanted to see her the way God intended her to be, not the way that the world and the God of this world that wanted to give me what I desired was trying to get me to focus on. That's all I got. I mean, I hope that helps somebody to avoid lust. It's not easy to stay focused on the Spirit when everything is pushing you to see the flesh. I don't care if you have to get on your knees and pray for hours. That's something my father would tell me to do when we're under spiritual attack. You keep praying. Doesn't matter if it takes a second, a minute, an hour, a day, a year. You just keep praying until it goes away. And he taught me that. It was a powerful lesson. Because sometimes it takes a long time. And sometimes he says, my grace is sufficient for you. But keep praying, right? Keep walking with him. And even when he doesn't necessarily take it away, he's still going to be with you. And that's going to get you through it. So go out, love each other, walk in the Spirit, and let the fruits of the Spirit just drop around you like rain. Be a blessing to everyone. And if you walk and look at the Spirit and not the flesh, you will be. You won't even have to try. It'll just happen. And it'll be authentic and beautiful. And it'll glorify the Lord. So have a blessed day. And until next time.